Hi, it's Mark Coopersmith, and in my ongoing set of videos on all things innovation, entrepreneurship, and helping entrepreneurs realize their vision, it's a real pleasure for me to spend time in the first of several videos with my good friend and marketing guru, Liz Allen. Hi, Liz.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great, and thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I am excited for what we're going to talk about here. First of all, I love marketing. And second of all, I love the perspective that you bring to marketing with the experiences that you've had. So I'll provide a little intro for Liz, and then I think she's got a slide we'll start sharing with a few of the brands she's worked for. Liz worked with Steve Jobs at Apple to launch somewhere between 15 and 20 different not companies, products and brands, including the iMac. She was a top marketing executive at The Gap, which was running marketing for 1,800 stores and many other brands that you know of or top marketing agencies and a number of startup brands. So I love the perspective, Liz, that you bring of how we create great brands like Apple and also how we and build them and continue to invest in them, but also how we launch new brands that nobody's heard of and turn them into great brands like Apple. And that's what we're going to be doing here in our short video series. I hope, right?
We are absolutely.
I
Should we
love
jump
it.
in? Let's
All
jump
right,
in.
so that's Liz's background a little bit. Let's move on. Now, when you think about a go-to-market strategy, let me frame this. By now, in my classes or some of the other videos we may have seen, we've been through the 4 Ps. We've talked about and some of the extras. We've talked about our persona or our customers. We've been through the 4 Ps of product, price, place, and promotion. We've done some competitive positioning, and I know we're going to touch on them here, but those are core building blocks as we build a go-to-market strategy. And you take those and then apply kind of a process and a framework specific for new ventures and new products.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note that there really is a bit of a sequence. Sometimes you think entrepreneur, startup, it's crazy, it's chaotic, but there really is a bit of a formula that will help you ground yourself and orient your teams. So here's how I like to think about it. This first set, this launch, create, establish is really what you're doing. And so you want to launch that product or that service really successfully in the market. You need to create awareness, all those kind of pieces, but you also need to establish that competitive advantage. That's sort of the what, but the why is also really important. So in this, really want to identify the drivers for growth as you start to get some traction in the market. You're going to continue to create those alignments and prioritize initiatives and resources as you go through this go-to-market process. And then you want to inspire confidence, I would say, for your investors first and foremost, but also your teams. Like that just might be your business partner sitting next to you, but you need to be inspiring each other and or whoever you bring on board to help you with this endeavor. Super important.
Absolutely. Partners as well. If you've got channel partners or others, investors, totally agree. So there's elements of the pragmatic components that we have to do, but then there's the more aspirational, identify, create, inspire, that are all a part of this.
Exactly.
Awesome.
I have another slide here because startups are different.
Startups are different. And
So
we talk about different in the frame, but we talk about how startups are different in particular from big companies, from established brands.
exactly. I mean, really, a go-to-market plan for a startup is, you could say, yes, take everything you know from launching a big company or going to market with a product or service for something else, and then strip away a lot of the benefits you get from that. I would say conversely, you have other benefits. So you are smart and scrappy and nimble, and you have to move quickly. And sometimes that's really great because you're limited even with resources or money. So you have to make very disciplined and smart decisions. Whereas in a bigger organization, you might have a lot of waste, or you might move more slowly, or it's hard to get things across the finish line. So there really is an advantage to this startup. It should be smart up environment and the way you go to market. But really, it's just you're creating campaigns that work as building blocks, and you are really disciplined in how you use your resources along the way, both cash and people resources.
Well, and one of the crucial differences is you don't have a brand. So benefits as well as disadvantages to start with. People don't know about your company. They don't have a sense of who you are or what your product does or where it's positioned. So you have the opportunity to frame it wherever you want, which is great, but you have to drive in particular that early awareness and consideration.
Exactly. So this is something I like to share. You might have seen, you people watching, you might have seen a slide like this and Mark standing right in the middle about the customer. This is the GoToMarket Foundation. The customer is always going to be in the center of everything you do. I would say as you develop your product, as you start to develop your marketing plans, as you start to get this go-to-market plan, and you build this foundation. In this case, I really try to put 4 major components around here, but you could put your P's around here as well. As we go to market, the things I'm going to focus on are going to be messaging, the channels in which we use. That customer life cycle is going to come back, and we're going to keep talking about that because that's going to be critical as you continue to develop these go-to-market plans. But also there are a few little logistical issues that you probably want to consider too.
And a lot of what's in here too is this framing from strategy to execution and tactics. And we can see that across these elements that you've just laid out here.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
But who's important?
Well, it's the customer. It is the customer. We've spent so much time by now on customer discovery, on starting to frame out personas. So if we're going to talk about personas, which we will, it's a concept that we have definitely spent some time on. Back to you.
Okay, so without the customer, you don't exist. If you don't have customers, what are you doing? Just talking to yourself all day long. So you need that customer. So to get that customer, you have to be customer centric in everything you do. I will tell you, this is a great way to win too. If you ever have a debate with your teams or partners, what does the customer need? What do they expect from us? What do they want? How do we solve their problems? If you can always bring it back to that, you will win. So be specific and targeted, understand again what they're looking for, and figure out how you're going to meet their needs better than anybody else.
Just
That's
one little thing for me that's important, whether you're a big company or a startup or a small company, is having everybody in the organization spending time with customers, not just the people who are selling products or doing customer support, because it's that voice of the customer that really is your North Star.
exactly. Hey, guess who's here?
We've seen Clark before.
Okay, I like talking about Clark, but I want to get a little bit deeper into talking about Clark and into what Clark really is about.
Now, there's a lot of elements that are on this particular persona that we've also used in the past, and you really break it down in a number of key ways.
Yeah, and this is the way I sort of dissect it and sort of work with my teams on it. It's really the demographic, then psychographic, and then that persona comes out of those things. So as we talk about building blocks, and there is a little bit of a linear way to do these things, start with the demographics. That's going to help you with like media targeting and those kind of pieces, and should not be overlooked. Your investors are going to care about that. That's going to help fuel your financial model and everything else. Psychographics are going to help so much when you start to talk about attitudes and attributes, but that persona, as you guys have probably discussed, really brings this customer.
And you're going to give us an example as we work through Clark. Is that right?
Yeah, let's talk about Clark. So if I break him down a little bit, in a good way, I'm looking at these demographics here. This is the who of what he is, the real factual data, household income, his age, his profession, those kind of like statistical pieces, again, will help you with your media planning. If I look at psychographics, this is really a little bit more about the why. It's a little richer investigation about his motivations and his pain points and, what's influencing him and what's driving him to make the purchase decisions or trials that he's going to,
A lot of this comes out of our customer discovery work too, when we understand what the frustrations are, what the motivations are, those elements. And that's why we want to make sure we do that in-depth customer discovery work.
Exactly. And a lot of times you could stop here, but I really do like the persona work because for me, bringing a story to life about, for instance, Clark here, this is really why it's a fit. So you are really creating this whole, 360-degree view of Clark. And this is going to be helpful for your stakeholders, and whether that's your investors or your internal teams. It also helps really paint a picture so everybody's aligned, like, I get it, here's where we're going, to whom, why, what makes them tick, and why we solve all their problems in a really meaningful way.
We also have an element there. If we go back one, we have an element there around brands. So when we look at persona, why would we think about brands as well? Why is that on there?
Yeah, brands are really critical because brands give you a little bit of a sense of affiliation and where they position themselves. Are they high end? Are they, more pedestrian? Are there partnerships that you can do? These are things that you can pick up as you get ready to do that go to market mix. But it gives you a little bit of an immediate anchor on where they stand and how they feel and where you might be able to best position yourselves in relation to some of these other brands that might not even be in your category.
Yeah, excellent.
There is something I should probably note. We really are talking about this in a B2C version. There are some differences as you get to B2B. So if anyone's working on a B2B concept, as you relate to building out the demographics, psychographics, and persona for a B2B customer, they're still people, and you still need to treat them like people, not just the CIO or the CEO or whatever else. So you might know that you can get to them on a golf course because that's one of their hobbies and habits. But the other piece you should consider is their world and their persona through their business lens. So what level are they? How can you solve a problem for them on an enterprise level? How can you help them get ahead, get a promotion? What makes them work and tick in a workplace? And some of the timing that might be important for them, like, oh my God, it's budget season. How can I get to them before budget season? This is this critical moment I have. Those kind of pieces.
Yeah. So what does success look like for this individual in their role in their career? And how can your product or service help be a hero to help them get there?
Exactly. I'm going to touch on the customer lifecycle. I have a different sort of view than Mark has, but it's all sort of the same story. I know you've done lifecycle, you've done the funnel. It's all sort of the same piece. And from a startup perspective, you really are stopping at this trial phase. But this is really going to be important as we break down the go-to-market strategy. So I'm going to hope to help you focus as we go along those that journey to make sure that we have the right messages, the channels, and the tactics as we go along this life cycle.
Well, and as we break it down into those three elements that you have, how do you make your customer aware that you exist? How do you then enter their consideration set? Maybe I'll try them. And then finally, how do you get them to actually try you or buy your product? And that's very similar to the other frameworks that we've seen too.
Yeah, it's nothing new, but it's just
Mhm.
now we're going to take it a little richer as we get to go to market planning. The last thing I just want to touch on before we break is messaging. So this is really what you're saying to your customer. It is derived from your positioning statement and your objective in that part of the life cycle. So always keep your customer at the forefront and consider that value proposition for them as we go along this piece. There are a ton of different kinds of messages out there. There are corporate messages and brand messaging and even distinct messages about product and features and those kind of pieces. To craft any of them, you need that very clear positioning. So if you don't have your positioning, stop here, go back, watch some other Mark videos, hone that positioning, get that right. And then we can come back and talk about messaging and how we bring it to life for the customer.
And again, to reiterate on that point, when we're talking about positioning, what do you do better than your competition for your target customers, especially that early adopter customer as we go to market? Whether it's that 2x2 positioning or a competitive matrix, just remember your positioning is going to promote those things that you do particularly well.
I would say there's another piece here. This last line, sorry, I need to go back. Apologies. Make sure you can deliver on what you promise.
Yeah.
A lot of brands and startups make some big promises. So make sure you do a litmus test and you can deliver on what you're promising for your customers.
And as we go to that final slide, and this is the closing slide for this video and the starting slide for our next, we're now going to spend some time with you, Liz, building out this go-to-market framework and how we want to think about different channels. And you're going to give us some tactics and some tips on the execution as well.
I am. I can't wait.
Excellent. Come back. We'll see you soon.